Welcome to TCP, the TMZ edition, where we only talk about drama, nothing else, just drama today. It's 256, and yesterday was a no drama episode. Today is the all drama episode, and to kick off the drama, I'm going to start some of my own drama. So here we go. I predicted that the Mayhem would indeed beat the London Spitfires. So there you go. That's my drama. What were you guys doing?
Is
getting that pred horribly wrong.
Is this
terribly wrong?
Trying to
Painfully
squeeze the last bit of dopamine out of this weekend until we get to the Toronto match where you predicted that they would beat the Atlanta Reign?
I'm just gonna enjoy myself for as long as I can until we get to that match.
Smart strategy.
When that match happens, I'm just gonna forget. I'm just gonna pretend it didn't happen. So it's all good.
We'll remind you, won't we, Joe?
I mean, we also did predict Vancouver to beat Toronto, so you know there could be some extra revelry for.
I'm feeling good about this.
AVRL.
I'm feeling good about this.
Okay. I'm pretty sure Toronto's good. I'm pretty sure Toronto's gonna be pounded. Yeah. So if you obviously the week's games has started now, and this recording is kind of in the middle of that, so we're not gonna really be talking about the games just yet. It just so happened that at least one match had finished by the time we recorded, so just wanted to gloat a little bit. Yeah, yesterday things happened. Yesterday it was a day of things happening, and oh boy, did they happen! What an insane! I'm subtweeting really hard. Yesterday I subtweeted hard, and someone's like, "Wait, but what is the news?" It's like that's the whole point. It's like you have to wait till today. We subtweeted all of last episode because there was just no point getting into it until we're gonna actually get into it, which is now.
Yeah.
So 256 brought to you by AVRL Vista Bebe, Battlecrab, Refine Bean, Bronzebot Buhal, Chari, Picasso, Chris R34444, Cash67, Lulshin, Porkchop Sammy, Rex Zane, Volamel Smooth Nuts, and Your Misery with YouTube members Ice Jello, William Jesse, Vishmam, Fire Element 6, AK, and Chris R. And also special shout out to our partners Juked, which, by the way, is another platform where, if you want to, you can discuss the drama.
True. And it probably would be a little bit more healthy, less toxic, because Juked, the sponsors of this episode of Tactical Crouch, take a hands-on approach to trying to deal and reduce toxicity. If you're not familiar with Juked, it's a social media app that's been focused and tailored to kind of catering to the needs of esports and gaming fans. So if you're an Overwatch fan, I would assume if you're here, you probably kind of are. If you're interested in catching up with contenders or trying to get ahead of the curve and looking at some of next year's rookies, and you're not sure when contender starts, you're like, hey, when does Talon play? Hey, when does O2 Blast play? Hey, when does I can't think of an EU team right now, but picture an EU team. You're looking for those schedules. Juked has you covered. If you're interested in multi esports, Juked also has you covered. They have some I think job postings as well that they've recently added. So get on top of that. Check all that stuff out. It's a good place to kind of circumvent a lot of the toxicity that other apps could lead you down. So on top of staying up to that, you can again take interest in those schedules, any kind of breaking news that we're going to kind of discuss as well. But they also just added a new live chat feature that just started today with some of the live matches. So I was in there kind of chatting with everybody about the Florida London game there for a little bit. So go check that out if you're itching for some Twitch chattery, but not as spammy, and YouTube just doesn't do it for you. But we also have to get to our Juked Award of this week, which went to a couple of folks who answered the ever hot question of who is going to be the best Junker Queen. Yiska and I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but today we have user Gunchpot claiming that Hawk is going to go nuts with the JQ. We have someone by the name of Samson as well. And APAC, I think Fury and Void will have been able to put on a full grind on her and lead the way. Quote, if Philly doesn't try to just force Wrecking Ball with Belsaria. And then you have a very in-depth and pretty thought-provoking post from JS Santorelli. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Kind of going through some of their top teams. I think Dallas, Boston was in there too. Giving some shout outs to Reiner and Hawk and Smurf, but really kind of going in depth. So shout outs to you guys for really kind of putting your thinking caps on, looking at some of the top Junker Queens. Anybody from you guys with these first couple of games kind of standing out? Anybody that's like really out there? Anything
Someone
that you're
does.
looking forward towards? Someone does. Okay, I'm here for it.
I'm not gonna say who, but someone.
Fair.
Well, I guess by the time you guys listen to this, it's probably already been proven. But I got my, as a good Scrimbuxian, I got my ear to the ground and asked around, like, who's really convincing on Junker Queen. I mean, you already knew it was going to be Hanbin, right? Like you could have that's the guy you bet on, basically. Now also the importance of Genji is back. The importance of Lucio is back. So this might just be not that bad of a meta for the fuel.
That's what I said yesterday.
Yeah,
I literally said that yesterday.
Yeah.
So I think I'm on the money too.
Yeah.
Basically, what Yiska's trying to say when he has his ear to the ground is he fucked around and found out.
True.
He found out the fuel are kind of good.
Yeah. No. Get your dopamine in. Toronto is coming.
Yeah. And Toronto's and because you got your ear to the ground, you also heard that Toronto was really good because that's definitely what I heard.
I
didn't hear
people don't talk about
that's
Toronto.
what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear.
It's the forbidden team to talk about.
Actually, I feel like either Hanbin or Fearless could have been good because, as I mentioned yesterday, there's no precedent for like which tank discipline is better at Junker Queen.
Yes,
it could be either the off tank or the main tank player. It literally could be anybody. Yeah. So it's a very interesting hero in that way. Yeah, but we will enjoy all discussion about who's good at Junker Queen, who's winning what games on our next episode. What I love doing during these episodes now is talking about what we're not going to talk about and talking about what we will be talking about next episode, but not this episode. And then finally, we'll actually talk about this episode, which is right now. So, yeah, all the news happened yesterday. We waited 24 hours to see if anything else could come out. And it didn't. That's all good. Because still some good entertainment on the Bird app. One of those unmoderated apps. You know how it is. Bit of a Wild West. Not the exceptionally clean and orderly Juke GG. Where things are discussed without all the clownery of Twitter. So speaking of clownery on Twitter, where do we begin? I suppose the biggest one has to be the Washington Justice News, featuring yours truly on this panel, Yiska, who wrote the article. So, should I leave it to you to do a bit of a summary? You don't have to read out your article, but I mean, what's the A to B on that?
So basically, I released a report based on sources that I talked to that because of the financial situation of the Overwatch League, the Washington Justice are going to drastically downsize their competitive cost, which will see, the reduction of competitive costs unfortunately does imply that you want to reduce salary costs and you want to incur buyouts from other teams and try to get as much out of and squeeze as much as you possibly can. And this has manifested in a way that the Washington Justice has tried to shop all of its players, not just to get the buyouts, but also to, presumably decrease their overhead, or rather their salaries. And this arrives at massively in an opportune time, because we're currently, as we record the podcast right now, exactly a week away from the end of the trade deadline. Now, the trade deadline this year around is a little bit weird, and it takes a little bit to understand why this is a specifically precarious situation for these players. So the trade deadline this year is only in the literal sense a trade deadline, meaning Overwatch League players with active Overwatch League contracts that that upon the 18th and then midnight, so into 19th, whoever at this point has an active Overwatch League contract is only eligible to play for the team they are currently signed to for the rest of the season. Meaning, if the Washington Justice was to not release its players prior to that event, was not to find someone to buy out these players at the time, they could be released into free agency after, and those players would not be eligible to play for other Overwatch League franchises, ending their season just about at midway point. And other franchises would be able to sign them, just not play them for the rest of the season. And unfortunately, as the financial situation of that is implied in this story here might inform you of, it is unlikely that a team will sign any of these players just to hold them over until next season, right? In order to have them. So implicitly in this also, I mean, for some players, this will probably be less of an issue, especially those that could be bought out. But it stands to reason that some Overwatch League careers will die in the next week. If you just think it through.
At least for the time being.
Yes.
Yeah.
But maybe not just for the time being, but for like maybe this puts them into an undesirable position until next year, right? So there are players on that roster that are sort of edge cases, right? That won't have the opportunity to prove that they are worth signing, and it will be very hard to come back from this, right? It's particularly rough to have this happen at this point, because here's another quirk to the story that, in my opinion, is an oversight in the rule set by the Overwatch League. Here's the nightmare scenario for all of these players.
Mm-hmm.
So something you need to understand of the rules of the Overwatch League is, at any given point after, I think, a date in March, the Overwatch League teams are required to have 6 active, fully contracted players. Okay?
All right.
So you would think, okay, right, these players for the Washington Justice, well, these guys are still held to that contract, or rather the rules by the Overwatch League, meaning 6 of those players at least need to be signed. Like, if the deadline comes, the Justice haven't released any of its players, they still need to fulfill those 6, right?
Right.
Kind of, because here's another important piece of the puzzle. A potential scenario is that the Justice sit out this window. They don't get anyone, that they don't budge on the buyouts. They don't get any buyers, any action. They bring those players past the deadline on August 18th. Upon realizing that these players now no longer hold trade value, but are beyond the minimum salary of what you could be signing, they release these players into free agency, only having to, I mean, okay, here's a negotiation clause, but as sources have advised, a lot of players are on 30-day severances, meaning they will only get a severance in the order of 30 days of their current annualized salary. So that means that the Justice is not in a position to have to keep these players. Why not? Because the Overwatch League has allowed teams to sign people with non-active, people that don't have an Overwatch League contract at that time, past the deadline. So here's the nightmare scenario for all of these players, especially the good ones who you would think would create some interest in them.
Mm.
August 18th rolls around. Teams are trying to get these players. The Justice are not willing to go down on their buyouts. Nobody comes to an agreement. It's August 19th now. The players get fired, get only paid the 30 days severance. They're all getting fired. Someone is going to get signed, like some contenders team, 6 of them, for a minimum salary, while all the current Justice players basically only get their severance and won't be able to play in the Overwatch League for the remainder of Season 5. Right? And unable to prove their value. There's nothing at this point that they could be doing that would give them a chance at competing in Overwatch League Season 5, right? And as new rookies get the opportunity here, I would argue this just puts some of them into a competitive disadvantage where their career is very much in danger. So, in this also, which is probably also something that should be mentioned, and is definitely a big story with large implications on the health of this league, is that the reason the Washington Justice are doing this, according to my sources, is that the financial case for Overwatch League teams is very weak at this point. And just looking at what kind of information we have, the viewership is not great, right? It's not something to the degree which you could have hoped for with the beta releasing, with Overwatch 2 implicitly releasing. Even the sponsorship, the beta activations, the drops that happened there didn't really help. And they kind of blew their load on the streamer activations instead of the Overwatch League activations. But because if you remember, the first burst where how people got access to the beta was actually through streamers, where we had the peak of 1.5 million. After that, like the activations that the Overwatch League then did had a much lesser effect, right? So that's a problem. Then, due to the negative press Blizzard Entertainment has had with sexual harassment allegations.
Sure.
The sponsors, we currently only have 2 league sponsors, which is TeamSpeak and Upper Deck. That's not great. This is a league that has pride itself on its ability to sell sponsorships. The streaming rights deal is up for renewal after this season. It's highly unlikely that we're going to get anything on the order of magnitude that we received, either from Twitch initially or from YouTube in 2020. So that's a big question, because that is one of its biggest income sources at this point, right? Like, you got to think like the rev share model is highly dependent at this point on whatever the streaming rights deal is. So where's the business case for these teams? Where are teams supposed to get their money from? And from what I could find out, the only way to break even at this point, or that these teams see, is to just go full minimum at it, like the Paris Eternal are doing, like the Los Angeles Valiant, and they're not going to the absolute full extent of minimum, but very close to. So if that is the only way to be profitable in year 5, then we got a problem on our hands. Now, I will say, in the follow-up of this, I have seen some teams come forward to me with evidence or with opinions that there are other ways to be profitable in this. And indeed, there are some speculations, and I this is why I can't report this, but there could be other teams that are profitable. And I think, for instance, the Shock have said as much, that they are on the way of profitability.
Sure.
And yeah, so from the outside, it's very hard to judge the current situation. But nevertheless, one of the teams, especially those that are very business-minded, have now are in the process of effectively pulling the plug on investing more than they need to. And this is a warring situation, right? So beyond that, these players are very likely to really get messed up or screwed over in this situation. It is also not a great sign for the Overwatch League's future going forward, unless Overwatch 2 pops off or free-to-play helps us, but viewership has to increase. But especially sponsors need to pick up.
Of course. I think, just to reiterate, because, there's a lot to unpack there. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but like the TLDR of all of that is Justice could be dropping their entire roster. And if they do so after August 18th, I believe was the date that you said, both in your report and just, a couple minutes ago, that these players would be ineligible to be signed to another team and also play if they were to be dropped prior to August 18th.
Yes.
Okay. Prior to August 18th, they could be signed to another team and could play for the rest of the season. Afterwards, they could not.
Yeah.
I think that's like the big focal point here, outside of like the big sponsorship, worrying, money, where's our money? Oh my God, ROI, all that stuff.
Can we put a pin into that rule, by the way? Like, I want to discuss the idea behind this rule that the league has set, because I have some issue with that.
Okay.
But yeah, basically this is what it comes down to. So, I mean, you would think there's some interest from some parties in...
Have to be for some players, right?
I think probably someone that has to have some market interest is happy.
For sure.
It's probably, in my opinion, I don't know how you guys feel about this.
He's the number one.
This is the number one. This is the number one player. That's a player that is still on top of his game, that like has never had a reputation of being like someone that you couldn't slot into any of your rosters. Also, a lot of the trade targets haven't had you before, and also like if you could get an elite hit scan at this point in the season, you're probably going to massively upgrade for the majority of the teams. There are some trade targets. I mean, I struggle to find a team that wouldn't upgrade by having Happy. I mean, Dallas is never going to happen, but even Gladiators would be an upgrade at this point. So we'll see how this develops. On the other side, like
you see there, he's going to the charge. You don't sneak past. You can't sneak that one past me. You talk
Happy's
about development.
The charge.
Yeah, he's going back to the charge. That we got to confirm, boys. We got him. We baited him successfully. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, continue.
Listen. All I'm saying is, with all of these players from the Justice potentially being let go, No Hill is once again licking his lips.
Beastin'. Yeah,
he's like, "Yo, I now have Pelican, Piggy, Eris, and all of the Washington Justice to pick from." This is like a smorgasbord for the LA Valiant. You know what I'm saying?
Justice staff got No Hill acting up. Ooh.
No Hill, yeah. No Hill about to act up. I want to I want to clarify one thing with you, Yiska, because I saw potentially for me a pretty triggering comment. I'm sure you would have been triggered by this as well. But to confirm, this is everything to do with Justice, executive, whatever management's approach and view on the financial viability, and not a performance-related thing.
100%.
This isn't because Justice are not performing well or are underperforming, and the executives are not happy about that.
No, like, okay, I can't say for sure, but I can tell you this much, and I can give you a little bit of a teaser on the budget tier list that I'm going to put out tomorrow.
Based.
Yes, the Justice are slightly underperforming their budget, but not incredibly so. The Justice are sitting flush in the middle of NA budget, meaning 7th, and they're currently 9th in NA. That's not a ridiculous underperformance, as you will find out. There are definitely teams that so far have dodged a lot of the criticism who are tremendously underperforming.
That's a hell of a pill to swallow for some fans out there who seem to be convinced that like Washington's the top spender.
They're not.
Wait, but you're telling, but isn't Decay on $1 million? Ah!
No.
So that's what Reddit sounds like on a daily basis. They apparently think Washington's like as big as Fuel or some shit. I'm sure some people think that.
Yeah.
Because here was a triggering comment. Is like there are fans who legitimately think that this is a performance issue. They're like, no, it's because they suck. Yeah, it's definitely because they suck.
Yeah.
And then there was the comments of like, oh man, look, they're gonna get rid of their roster and they're not even gonna touch the coaching stuff. It's like, don't know where you got that. Don't know how that's what you read, but
pretty sure that it explicitly is in the piece where it's like, you know, staff and, you know, coaching could be also up for debate. You know, also just throwing that out there.
Keep in mind, there's some inaccuracy in this. There's also worlds where like the market even overvalues how much the Justice are paying their players. So that like maybe they are within range of performing exactly up to their budget. But it is interesting from what I could find out how their payment structure is built up. There will be some weaknesses in the budget tier list, as you can imagine, because it's a self-reported list. I have some rather... I didn't think I would get as much of a clue, but very graciously, some people have opened their books to me. So you will get a much more accurate guesstimation of at least some teams in each tier. How much they
that be under anonymity,
yes,
or will we get like details on? No. Okay, very cool.
Like definitely anonymity, as you can imagine. Like this is not something that
he's publishing the book.
I'm not even sure if it's legal for them to share this, but you will.
Sure, yeah, maybe.
Like if I play my cards right, you will have an understanding of what top talent can demand in terms of buyouts, in terms of salaries. You will have an idea of what aspects are considered by these players, how coaches weigh into this, how the players aren't just after the money, but also prefer a good atmosphere, to play under a certain coach, to play with a good coach, to play with certain players, to play right. So all of this is going to be described in there, but you will have to understand this is an inaccurate science because it's inherently people judging other people's pocket.
So again, to confirm, had Justice been a high-performing team, so same roster, same budget, but if the Justice were performing extremely well, would they still be making the roster-wide cut?
So, unless you believe, okay, here's the thing. Some teams have been able to monetize their competitive success. I think the Shock is among them. Obviously. Monetizing success in the Overwatch League is a non-trivial task. It doesn't just come to you. What you could do is just like take all the prize money from your players. That's frowned upon. You're probably not getting good players. Yeah.
I don't think you can do that.
Yeah.
Because they're guaranteed 50%.
Yes. I think that there's a clause in there that you can't take all, but you can take some. But that's not going to recuperate your losses. Our prize money is not that high. What really needs to happen is like the added marketing benefits that you might be getting through having high placements, having more airtime, even though I've repeatedly been told that the amount of on-air time that you're getting, for instance, through getting into the finals, therefore having played more matches, is actually not really a thing you can sell that well to sponsors. Right? There are orgs that care a lot about their image as a winning org. A lot of those are endemic orgs, though, right? they have those mechanisms developed as to how to monetize excellence more effectively, right? So would this situation be the same? It's impossible to say, but I'm inclined to say this is a non-trivial situation to monetize, and I believe that wouldn't be the case, and we would be in the very same situation.
But you're still putting it back into the monetary value, the financials, because what you're talking about is even if they perform better, they would have to find a way to monetize that properly to justify keeping the team.
Yes.
So it still comes back down to the money at the end of the day. So it's not we suck and we need to make we changes to improve our roster. Because here's the other thing that people are not understanding is there's an unfortunate amount of people who read your article and think, oh, this is the Washington Justice looking to upgrade their roster. Yeah, they realize they're losing and they're going to be making upgrades to their roster.
No,
I have a rude awakening for you, buddy. You're about to get a fucking wake up call on that one.
Yeah,
sorry, this is not a situation where they're getting upgrades. This is them dumping their rosters and going minimum.
If you read Yiska's report and assumed, if anything even remotely looking at upgrades was what you took away from that,
well, not even upgrades, just like,
I wish,
oh, it's a performance thing and we are looking to fix our performance. If that's your takeaway from the article, you've misread the article.
Yeah, you need to reread that.
You've misunderstood the point. So it is a financially driven thing. Even if performance was part of that, it's performance that then leads into some sort of
correct
financial outcome. So it still comes back to the finance at the end of the day. Okay, so a couple places we can take that conversation now is we can move that into where the current financials of the league are, because Toronto/OAM just kind of there was a report about their spendings over the past year,
which is harder to evaluate, right? Because there's two key issues to understand about like that report. It's less of a loss than last year, and the Toronto OAM pays a lot more esports salaries than just the Overwatch League salary.
Because here's the thing. So to go into detail a little bit more on that, essentially, let me actually find it so I can get the exact numbers, the exact whatchamacallit, so I'm not misrepresenting. Toronto Defiant Ownership Group, which is Overactive Media, records 5.5 million loss in the first half of 2022, which is less than what they have last year. Although, given this is only the first half of the year, this 5.5 might increase. Obviously, is obviously due to increase.
Yeah.
It's less than the 8 million recorded last year and less than the 16 million recorded the year before that. The other thing to note is this is a combined report for all of Overactive Media, which includes Mad Lions and Toronto Ultra, the League of Legends franchise team and the Call of Duty franchise team as well. So it's all three teams together. Of which, hard to say what they're spending the most on. If I was to guess, Mad Lions easily is the biggest cost, because LEC.
Yeah, I have to assume, right?
That's a franchise cost, and that's also a pretty major expenditure cost. And also, the League of Legends salaries are way higher than I think both COD salaries and also Overwatch League salaries.
Yes.
So, yeah, but I also like some people would look at that as like, oh, doom. Oh, if they're losing 5.5 million, oh my god.
Yeah, no, that's not.
It's done. Esports is dead.
Yeah,
that's like every team. This is like every single team.
Yes, I think most esports teams in general.
All esports, by the way.
Yeah. I think that opens up like a bigger point regarding like just esports as a whole, and like, are we able to make money on a lot of just like this investment, either from like venture capital or just from, angel investors, just kind of like, or sponsorship money? Like, are we actually making money in the long run, or just have rosters or player salaries and, the cost of operations just gotten so high that it just can't continue to sustain at this rate? I mean, that's a bigger topic, but obviously a little bit outside the lens of Overwatch.
Yeah. I mean, this is also like to contextualize this a little bit. I, of course, talk to a lot of owner level people in regards to the budget tier list. And you will find that a lot of people are preparing for winter.
Sure.
With a recession coming, an industry like esports, because as a recession is impending, marketing budgets dry up. And that unfortunately impacts an industry like esports pretty significantly, right? So from what I heard is that a lot of those esports endemic orgs are expecting salaries to stagnate or downsize over all of esports. It's not just Overwatch League that are. The thing is, like, makes our situation maybe a little bit even more precarious because, like, others have a working system. Yeah, they will have to downgrade, but like, what does that imply about us? But then again, we'll see what that means, right? But yeah, generally, like, I think there's reason to believe that Overwatch League salaries probably have peaked in past seasons, that we already were downsizing a little bit, and that this that there's a market correction coming into what players can be expected to be paid
for all of esports, by the way.
For all of esports, and I mean, to give you a comparison, I think I have a stat in mind: 2018, 2019, or something. The LCS had an average salary of 410,000 USD. Right? Like, we were pretty far away. The last time we've gotten our average, we were, with prize money and everything, just above 100K as an average for
change.
Yeah. So
and the top salaries for LCS were like $1 million.
Yes.
So yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Which definitely dragged up the average as well. Our top salaries are much lower than this, of course. Right.
Our top salaries is the League of Legends average salary.
Yeah. Yes.
Literally, yes. Like,
and it gets tricky to evaluate all of that because, like, I would love to just tell you a number, like, and of course that number exists. Like, a player of the caliber of Capstar, Prophet, Fleda, Lip, Proper, or whatever, is expected to make X, but it's down to the negotiations. It's down to hitting performance markers. It's down to was this player traded in this year, because like players in the Overwatch League get part of their buyout themselves. I believe it's 25%. Don't name me to that, but that impacts their salary. Some of them have old contracts where like they have probably higher benefits. I think, for instance, someone like Carpe will probably struggle to get a contract of the size that he initially got. So I think, and I hope to bring some insight into what the current standard, so to speak, there is. There's also a very high chance that I'm missing some outliers here and there. But bottom line being, like, yeah, this is probably going to stagnate or go down. Then again, there's also phenomena in Overwatch where I cannot tell you how often. I think starting season 2, because season 1 there were inflationary numbers going around. Like,
of course, it's the hot new thing. You gotta, try to beat everybody to the punch.
Right.
Get it?
Especially in buyouts, right? But
for sure.
Like everyone always tells you, this is the catchphrase for you: mean and lean. Meaning, like, you don't have that big of a roster, but you also don't pay them that much. We're not going to let this all escalate. And then there's one team that just, like, slaps one giant, player in the market and signs them to a ridiculous contract, to a ridiculous buyout, and then it just cascades into lunacy where everyone's now, like, outbidding each other. The market has completely corrected, and we're once again, like, giving pretty good contracts. Like, in my estimation, and this is based on nothing, but my gut feeling is that Overwatch League players are compensated quite well in comparison to what the actual market supports, in like the percentage of the profits generated or revenue generated.
Okay.
We're getting a decent share for the Overwatch League players, right? So yeah, I think this trend, like as much as owners might just be sitting here and going like, oh yeah, we're going to all mean and lane next year. As soon as like someone puts out a stupid bid, I don't know, for Hisang or something, this might once again like to get the egos rolling. Fortunately, there are some endemics in this this league who are very much in it to win, and who are fine with, you know, spending a little bit more than financially feasible.
Some teams want to win, and then, you know, if they want to win really badly, they will spend a lot of money. But like,
yeah,
I think all esports salaries are inflated now. I think the Overwatch League salaries are some of the more
reasonable ones, right?
They're the more like, yeah, more reasonable salaries that exist in esports, because I think there's a potential, like there's again a number of fans are going to be dooming us like, oh no, our highest salaries are only average in League of Legends. Like that's
not a bad thing. That's a good
fucking good sign.
Yeah. I mean,
you guys don't understand how fucked salaries are.
In LCS, complete bullshit. Like LCS viewership is actually not that astronomically high, right? Like
LCS viewership is like pretty bad at the moment.
Yeah.
Like they get like 40 to 50k viewers. Okay, yeah, they do both Twitch and YouTube. Granted, we only do one of those. So technically they still have double our viewership, but I'm just saying, like, that's like they are getting a fraction of viewership they used to. But to bring the topic back on board, to give you an idea, you know, I got this this is an example given out from a recent Divinash video. It's like, you know, there are players in the LCS that get paid $1 million salary, and that could be a multi-year deal as well. And for those same teams, a single sponsorship deal might only be worth $1 million.
Yeah,
so one sponsorship deal for an LCS team for the entire team is literally just paying for one player's salary. That's it.
Yeah. Now,
a single sponsorship deal.
Just for people who aren't aware of who Devinash is, that's a former C-level executive at a League of Legends franchise at CLG. Yeah. Former, now is, like somebody who would know, basically saying these are the details. Yeah. Wake the fuck up. Like,
and it's just a little
someone who's actually working in like.
Is he advising these days?
No, he's doing. He's technically a, what is it? He's an agency manager. He's like, he runs an agency for streamers and all that. So he's very knowledgeable, and he's done. And he's been an endemic sports guy. So he's very knowledgeable in terms of like finances. But anyway, the point is like, yeah, I think our salaries are pretty healthy. No one's getting paid unbelievable amounts, because you have to remember, like, these prices, they cost the team so much money. Like, there's no way you get an entire sponsorship that's worth $1 million, and that just goes, all that money just goes to one player. Like, that's what a ridiculous way to run your team.
Yeah.
That's somewhat overinflated. So we're going to get a major market correction for all esports players, which is overdue and much needed. They get paid too much. I'm sorry, they do. And there's even for our players, there's a lot of other places where they make up for the difference in salary. So there's teams that, like, you know, some teams will not give their players housing and like logistical support, but they will add that into the salary. So for example, they'll give you another 20k or 30k or whatever, and then not do anything to help you with your housing situation. Then you sort that out, but you also get paid the money to do that. And other teams, you get paid 20 to 30k less, but then the team gives you housing support or logistical support, but then you get paid less. So depending on which way you weigh that up, I mean, it's you know, you either winning or losing there. And then there's players, you know, a good example is Dogman, who spoke a lot about his finances in the Overwatch League. I think this is especially relevant in season 2, where he made way more than his salary through tournament winning split than his actual contract. Right, he made most of his money through the actual tournament winnings, because Atlanta did pretty well.
Yeah.
So, there's a fair number of teams and players where maybe their salary is not amazing, but if they do well in a tournament and that prize money split actually ends up giving them a huge bump.
Yeah.
So there's all of that as well.
There's also some teams have of course, like we knew about the whole catering thing or like in-house cook thing for the Philadelphia Fusion in season 1. Like everyone
Chef Heidi.
Chef Heidi, yeah. I mean, some teams currently right now in the Overwatch League, and keep in mind the number I'm about to tell you seems high, but if you're like, in one of the most expensive areas in the United States, it's not that much. Give their players a $50 food stipend per day, so they can spend like $50 on Uber Eats every day per day. Yeah. But $50 per day is
kind of nice.
Is different in LA than it is in
for sure.
You know, like
very true.
So $50 per day in LA gets you a side dish and maybe a Coke.
Yeah, it's a Subway sandwich and maybe
gives you and not the foot long. That's a 6-inch
Subway
sandwich
no.
at best, and no extra toppings.
No extra meat. No
nothing.
Plain bread.
Forget about avocado. Yep. You can only have white bread and no cheese. Actually, you're not allowed to have cheese, and that's $50 in LA.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, and then you have to pay the tax on top of that. So another 50%. It's actually like $70, $75 give or take once you paid the tax as well. All jokes aside, though, yeah, it's like there's different ways the money's being handled. I think like as much as it's completely here's the thing that's been going around the league so far, and from the fan side and the player side, it all looks like shit. And in some ways, it is pretty shitty because you have players that are being intentionally or unintentionally being fucked over. You have these 30-day contract things coming in.
Yes.
And we're coming in and out. And there's other real I don't know if I want to use the word scummy, but there's like real sketchy stuff happening as well, where players some players may potentially be on rolling 30-day contracts, which means they're not even getting paid the full 50K, because if you're on rolling, to get pay the full 50K, you have to be paid from month number 1 to month number 12 the entire year. But if you're on a rolling contract and the league is you're only playing for 3 months or 4 months or whatever, then you're only getting that much pay out of the 50K. You're only getting 4 months out of 12 months worth of 50K or whatever the fuck it is. So you're below minimum in that case. So there's some people that didn't even realize. They're like, what? That's preposterous. And it is, but at the same time, I don't know if I can really blame the teams, because the teams are not, just as being a great example, teams are not in a great financial position.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you want the teams to do? The teams just have to fucking like shit money out of their pants somewhere. Like, I don't know, find sponsors. Like, you want to know a fun story about sponsors? You say find sponsors, Lamau. It's like find sponsors for it. They do. And then the fans are like, oh, can't believe XYZ team just got a crypto sponsor. It's like, what the fuck else do you want them to get? No one else is sponsoring.
Yeah.
So they're going to get a crypto sponsor. And then, you know what? The crypto sponsor's paying money. So do you want them to get a sponsor or not? Do you want the team to have money or not? You can't have it both ways here. You can't bitch about the players being fucked over and then bitch about them having a crypto sponsor. You don't get to have it both ways.
It's also
either they get the money to pay the players, or they don't. Which one do you want?
Yeah.
Pick one, please. Pick one. You don't get both. Pick one.
It's also sometimes rather confusing which sponsors cause moral outrage. And I'm not, like, for instance, if you're taking Saudi Arabian money, whatever, like we don't need to discuss what that means, but it's frequently pretty interesting, like what kind of sponsors are deemed like A-OK and which aren't. And if you look at, environmental impact or like, human rights issues in both of these companies, like you gotta feel a way that like maybe we're not measuring with equal sticks here, right? Like, has anyone ever bat an eye about someone accepting a McDonald's sponsorship? Like,
speaking of, didn't Justice have one?
I think so. But by the way, they were pretty.
Atlanta, shock. 3 teams have had a McDonald's sponsorship.
And through
and a whole damn contenders region. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, no ethical consumption under capitalism, right? Like, we beggars can't be choosers. Otherwise, like, okay,
No.
like, the alternative is for you to pony up and pay for your esports pleasure, but like,
Yes. You
There
need
we
to
go.
buy. You need to buy more merch. You need to fucking start paying more money. But the problem with esports fans is they don't want to pay money for things. They enjoy watching esports for free. Fine, you can watch your esports for free. But if you want to live under that and you don't want to pay for your esports,
Then they have to find money elsewhere.
You don't get to fucking complain about teams taking Saudi money or China money or crypto money or any of that shit. Because if they don't take that money, they don't have money. They just don't have money.
We don't have a league.
Okay? Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You just can't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's you either accept that or esports is not for you. Sorry, seriously, you can't wrap your mind around that. Then esports might not be right for you as an entertainment product. Think about that.
yeah. Now we've got to find better monetization efforts. We got to create more value
it's hard.
for the consumer. It is.
I thought we were doing a decent job too, but like lo and behold, like it just doesn't pay for itself with like the referencing like the all access pass and the top down cameras and the POVs. It's like,
yeah, no,
it's a cool little resource. It just doesn't. It's not the content that people are actually willing to pay for it to not only keep it in the gray, but to actually be a monetization source. It's not even a revenue source. It's just burning money.
What was the story behind that? Like, that wasn't even making enough money to justify itself.
No, yeah, it couldn't justify itself, so they stopped it.
And I saw some real forehead like, oh, just the league should just do this comment on Reddit the other day, and it's just like one of the statements in that comment of like what the league should do is like the league needs to bring back Command Center. I'm like, for who?
We tried that though, yeah.
That
and
shit wasn't making enough money. Not enough. Fun fact: not enough people paid for that.
Yeah.
Not enough to justify it. Sorry, that's the truth. You don't realize this. You think it's just turn that shit on. Cool. You and like 5 other Timmies paid for that, and then 99.999% of people didn't pay for it.
Look,
Okay, so
and to some degree, I have empathy towards like our audience and our demographic in our audience not getting that, because I mean, you haven't been exposed to the harsh realities. Is everyone tells you that they like highbrow content, that they like to consume content that they like to be connected to, but never really like actually spend money on, right? Like there's a book which stays goated. I think it's called Private Truth, Public Lies, and it's about preference falsification, which drives our economy. Like everyone, it's not even that they intentionally deceive you, but like, do me a favor, if you're currently sitting in front of your PC, just estimate like what kind of content you consume. Like you might even be someone who says, yeah, okay, I read through all the major newspapers. Now open your browser history and see how much volume of your browsing is going through YouTube Shorts, through TikTok, through Instagram. How much of your day is spent on garbage? And I'm not blaming you. I'm just telling you, your subconscious is not giving you an accurate evaluation of what kind of a customer you are. Like, unless you're a bookworm that has figured out that they are being squeezed for their dopamine receptors, like to get that one more click in as to create an impression, like you're probably the product here. And like, that's unfortunately how like people just go after the money, the intention, and where they can monetize, right? And what comes out is a homunculi of an attention economy. And we're not going to get out of this one with highbrow energy unless you have to be so much better at creating entertaining content.
Yes.
Like,
it takes like, can you imagine, in order to compete with like the average top YouTube channel, how much effort it would take to get the same amount of views doing analysis Overwatch content? It is almost like you probably need a new like species of like super intelligence to figure out ways to outperform Mr. Beast with Overwatch League like analysis. It's impossible, right? It's possible that I watched more Mr. Beast in the last 30 days than I watched Overwatch analysis.
That's a self-report. That's a self-report. Wee woo, sound the alarms. He self-reported.
You know why? Because I try to not lie to myself on an average day. Go through your.
I remember that. No, you remember that when you come for the Zoomers.
Post your honest signing. Go look into your apps. Go into your little iPhone and look at what your screen time looks like. You are consuming garbage.
Yeah, of course. Pretty hard not to.
It's rough out there in the esports space. And even it's like, you know, there's the comments like, oh, but you know, right, it's doing a Valorant franchising, and you know they're not charging anybody for franchising fees. It's like, yeah, but you don't see how much money those teams still have to fucking pay.
Yeah,
through expenses.
Their players are.
Dude. Valorant have some of the most like insanely like
juiced,
overly juiced salaries that exist in esports. Ridiculous salaries.
It's also like, it's almost like
that's just one cost.
What Riot has done with Valorant really feels like the Emperor has called for the most entertaining jester, bring them to the court, and now like all the esports teams are going like, hey, are you entertained, Mr. Emperor, sir? And doing like the most like weird shit, just like, you know, like, oh, this guy, like they're signing influencers to their esports teams. They are like having their logo on some stadium here. Like here we're getting some influencer involved. What the fuck has that to do with competitive? It's all about cloud farming.
What you don't see is like, okay, publicly they say you don't have to pay franchising, but what you don't see behind the scenes is that in the RFP, in the RFP that the proposal stuff they have to send through, it's like you have to show company financials, the books. You have to have like such insane company financials that like, and it's not even that. It's like what they expect you to build the scene for them. Like they want you to invest into building the competitive scene, which means you are not paying franchising fees, but instead of paying franchising fees, you're literally just paying to justify their esport existing instead. They're just paying for the broadcast anyway. Because the team has to invest into the esport. That's there's an expectation the teams are going to be putting money into
wait.
Fuck.
No, guys.
What? Waiting. Wait.
What's the score at New York Excelsior, Houston Outlaws?
It's done. It happened. The reverse sweep happened. But in any case, I said we weren't going to talk about results today. The point is,
sorry.
Like, there's a lot of shit that goes on in the esports space that is like super fucked for the teams to deal with. So everyone's just trying to get through it. Everyone's just trying to figure that shit out. The good news is, you know, I think I'm still pretty positive about where the direction of the game is going, and with that coming through. The good news is when the game comes out, October 4th, the league will actually still be going. And the league ends this year. And there's plenty of time for the orgs to look through how the game actually looks like over the course of the next few months when the game, like post-launch, to then be able to evaluate whether they want to be part of that game still. So, yeah, I mean, if all things go well.
I want to throw this at you guys. How much of this, and again, like, I'm speaking from like a layman's like point of view. I know next to nothing about like marketing and sponsorship and what, you know, goes on there. But I remember like very early on within like the Overwatch League being announced and like this big holding pattern, and, you know, hearing from tournament organizers that like, why would I invest money into an esport that's going to be brought in-house when I get no future return on that? Like, I never get to touch it again. Like, it's not worth my time to like put money into the scene. So like, we didn't get a lot of at least Western tournaments for a long time. And is there a sense maybe that right now, obviously it's difficult for Blizzard to, you know, court sponsors because of all the court cases and drama and whatnot. And obviously, you know, for good reason. But is there also maybe a reason why it's been so hard for teams and the league to monetize correctly because of like the impending sequel that's just like on the horizon. That's like, why would I invest in Overwatch League now when I can maximize my investment, you know, speaking from a sponsor's perspective, when October 4 hits? Like when Overwatch League gets to Overwatch 2 and Overwatch 2 is out and everybody's playing Overwatch 2 and it's the, you know, hype new game on the block, like why wouldn't I then put my money in?
The whole thing's a major bandwagon. Like everything at the end of the day is we live and die by trends. And if something is trending up, like just in stocks, everyone wants to be part of the fucking trend. If something's trending down, everyone's fucking selling the stocks and jumping ship. So when shit goes bad, it goes really bad. When shit goes well, everyone's just jumping on. Even sometimes stupidly so. You're just on a trend because you just want to be part of a trend. You actually have no idea what's going on. You just want to be there because it's trendy. Right? And that's human nature. People just want to do that. That's human nature for sheep anyway. Not me. I'm a fucking wolf. Woof woof, bitches. No, I sometimes jump on trends too. Except TikTok. I don't get that. So yeah, like if you know the game can pop off, it can have its moment, and if enough people just give it a chance, then it might do well enough that, you know, things will start to look positive. That's really all we need. It's easy to be down at it now when like the whole beta rollout has been pretty weird and not fantastic. This has just been overall a really strange year across the board. You have teams wanting to play on Overwatch 2. Overwatch 2, it's both ready and kind of not ready at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Like, like it is ready technically. You can, you know, they can definitely play on it,
right?
And
but
play the matches, but it's also like not fully ready in there. And there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. There's things that, like, I mean, we all know about the problems with the fact that the players can't even really practice outside of scrim hours and all that kind of stuff. It's just really difficult. So this is one of those like holdover years. It's just like a weird time in the esports space for the Overwatch League.
Yeah,
but
it sucks that it has to be another holdover year. It feels like we've been on a few, but that's where I want to circle back to what you had said, AVRL, about like, you know, this essence of like these things can be mutually exclusive. Yeah, Justice, you know, allegedly maybe, you know, tease or toying with the idea of binning their entire roster in a very like malicious compliance way of doing it. And, you know, the league kind of reducing budget and, you know, it's hard to get sponsors and there's low faith in the league. That all can be true. But in that same sense, if we are to like agree on some of the sponsorship aspects and we are to agree on some of these trends, we've seen what Overwatch can do in the past. We've seen, by the way, how like glowingly we've attached to some of these, you know, new things that they've added with the battle pass and free to play and whatnot. So these things could be separate, right? These are mutually exclusive.
It's not even that hard to get sponsorship. It's literally just because of reputational thing. Like I said, because it's a downtrend, people don't want to be part of a downtrend. That includes sponsors. But realistically speaking, when you look over across the pond at our sister league, the Call of Duty League, very similar viewership.
Yeah.
In fact, it's in some cases you can very realistically argue that they have less viewership because they don't play as many games as we do. They also don't have an Asia region at all. It's 100% NA esport. Yes, there's some Europeans watching it, but they're all 12 teams are just all in NA. It's majority NA. People in Asia don't even know it exists. They don't care for Call of Duty at all.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know the whole China viewership thing is a bit of a meme, but fuck, at least we can get some of that. Not every esport can rely on that at all. Not every esport can get that. And Korean viewership, whatever. Like, it's just Asian viewership. Anything to do with Asia at all. Call of Duty doesn't have any of that. Similar viewership we get on one language. They don't have other languages, I don't think. And they have a lot of sponsors. They actually have a reasonable amount of sponsors, like quite a lot, for a game that is doing at best the same, if not worse, than our esport. Not saying that they shouldn't have those sponsors. They should have those and more, but I'm just saying, like, it's not that hard to get those. Like, we could easily be getting those too. It's just like we have a reputational hit. It's funny as well because, you know, that's still Activision Blizzard, but they managed to avoid everything because they get to lean heavy on the Activision side and you know, they get to pretend they're not Blizzard.
It's funny how perception works that way, and to that point, like I wonder if we go into like the grand finals, you know, with the game fully launched and maybe some excitement around it, and maybe we don't pick up like a playoff sponsor, right? Like I wonder if we actually start to see like tangible changes, like in the monetization, not structure, but like seeing some returning faces.
What I'm trying to say is, it's not like a viewership thing. It's not like, oh, no. Overwatch League only gets 40k viewers. Well, they can't get any sponsors on that. It's like, fuck yeah, they can. Valorant got sponsors very early on with similar or less viewers. It's like a lot of esports can get sponsorships on that kind of viewership. It's all just a trend and reputational thing. That's it. You know, we had a reasonable amount of sponsors before most of them pulled out and they didn't come back. Okay. Don't know what. I mean, are they coming back? Who knows? It's a bit of a question mark at this stage. Hope they do. How long is this? How long is this kind of embargo, whatever the fuck it is, gonna last? Who knows? But
I would guess there's a pretty finite start date for the revenue for the league. I think it's October 4th, and then we're off to the races. See how big this game gets, see how big the bubble goes, and see who comes a knocking. Because again, I think that perception's definitely going to shift. It doesn't mean that shit doesn't shock right now. You know, Justice imploding. We're going to get to another team that's doing a little bit of goofy clown Mickey Mouse stuff, but you know, it doesn't mean that it doesn't suck any less now. But
okay,
I think there's some hope there. For sure.
Let's talk about the next team now. We can move on from this topic. I think we've reached the limit on it. That team you're talking about. Joe, specify which team.
The old New York Excelsior. Poor.
Are you saying the same New York Excelsior that just reverse swept the Houston Outlaws? Holy shit.
The one and only.
The same New York. That, by the way, they've only got 2 wins so far this entire season.
And one of them is over Houston.
One of them is over Houston and in a damn reverse sweep as well. Yeah. So apparently, losing Myeongbong just gave them a win just off the bat. No, I don't want to. That's a little bit too transitive, but
dude.
Okay, so what is the scandal? What other drama just happened? The New York drama is the next big one. How do I even go about this? They accidentally released Myeongbong and then they had to actually release him.
Yeah, they announced that they released him. He retweets like lots of question marks, like being very confused. They delete said tweet. So then there's like this weird lull period of like people going, why is, you know, what happened with this tweet? People are kind of catching up. People are, you know, alarm bells are ringing. And then there's a public statement made from the New York Excelsior. I don't know if we have that.
Let's add. I got all the statements ready. Let's add a couple details here. There was also something reported through Halo, and just hang on, hold on. No, you're upset. I know I said the 4-letter word that made you upset, but you know, Halo Season 2, it did drop. Finally, it did drop. Part of the thing that was going on that led to all this confusion is that whatever level of management that was within New York that was handling the whole Myeongbong situation, the idea is they were meant to be trading him. They were looking at options for trading him. And then it got announced that he was getting dropped. And so there's a miscommunication somewhere within the org where, here's what I understand. The top level management that were working through the situation were not necessarily intending on dropping Myeongbong, at least not yet. Not when they had announced.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom level, whoever the social media people were, and they came forward and they said, hey, it wasn't us. We just got told to put this forward. Okay, cool, it's not them. So that means somebody in the middle fucked up.
Yes.
It wasn't the people at the top, because they weren't intending to drop Myeongbong. Again, at least not yet, because they intended to trade him. They wanted to trade Myeongbong. They didn't want to drop him. They were trying to get fucking money. They were trying to offload him to another team first. A team's priority is not just to terminate a contract, because that literally just means you lose money.
Yes.
So the idea is you're supposed to trade the player. So they were trying to trade the player. And then somewhere in the middle, between the top level and the bottom level, somewhere in the middle, somebody said, put this tweet out. We are dropping Myeongbong. Somebody in the middle just said that, supposedly, because the tweet went out. The social media people were like, yes, boss, we will hit submit. We will hit send. They hit send. And then Myeongbong's like, what the fuck's going on? And then all sorts of carnage happening within the New York Excelsior NYXL group where they're like, hang on a minute. Wait, we're not meant to be releasing Myeongbong, at least not yet. But what's going on? And it's like, oh shit, I thought we were. I thought we were going to release Myeongbong. I was like, no, we're not going to do that. But it's like, oh, but now we've announced. It's like, oh, shit, I guess we have to release them now. Is essentially how it goes down. So the actual statement, so we'll talk about this and we discuss. The actual statement from NYXL at the end of the day says, today we posted an announcement thanking Myeongbong for his time with us. However, we failed to properly communicate with the team before this announcement was made. We take full responsibility and there are no excuses. To Myeongbong, we are deeply sorry for our miscommunication and putting you through the situation. Although we wish this was communicated better, we truly appreciate your time with us and wholeheartedly want the best for you in your future endeavors. For fans, this is a mistake. We will not be repeating. We have immediately changed our communication processes moving forward. Myeongbong himself says, I was notified during the team feedback session that I have been dropped from the org. It feels like I was suddenly dropped due to a mistake from the social marketing team. The sudden news that was the result of a mistake from another department in the team, as well as not hearing anything regarding the possibility of me being dropped, feels very unwarranted. Good luck in NYXL. So that's what he said. But yeah, I mean,
oh, we love an esports team that can't communicate. We love it. We absolutely thrive for it.
I don't know that he. Okay, I think I do buy that Myeongbong didn't know he was getting dropped.
Oh, for sure.
But he should have. I'm fairly certain this guy should have known on some level, would have been told on some level that he was at least going to get traded, or that he was at least on the chopping block for trade.
Yeah.
You'd have to imagine, right?
Because I'm flabbergasted if he like literally had zero clue about anything, and he's like, "Yep, I'm going to be playing today," and then wasn't playing. Because here's something that people have to understand: is why do you think they signed Ho1? You might think NYXL is being a bit of a clown org at the moment, and you'd be right in thinking that. But when they're signing players with all these different options, I mean, there's a reason behind everything here. You think they randomly signed Ho1? No, they didn't randomly just sign a third flex support. Ho1's entire reason for being signed is to replace Myeongbong. Now, whether that's to perma-bench him or to trade him or drop him, the point still stands. Once Ho1 is eligible to play, Myeongbong's not fucking playing on this team anymore.
Right.
So I find it hard that he didn't know it was coming. Now, I do believe that he didn't know he was being dropped, but I would find it hard to believe that he didn't know he was at least going to be permabench or on the trade block, which in some cases, usually when you're on the when you're permabench, you probably are on the trade. Those two things are the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it just comes down to like where the communication did not go directly to him. I think like assuming as much is probably like very fair, and I would guess as much that he probably thought he was, you know, his career was in jeopardy as well. I just don't. I'm not saying NYXL did this, but I just don't know if I'm like on board for like any kind of like purposeful obfuscation. And then also to, you know, which I think we've pretty much established as a fact at this point, that like somehow, some way this trickles down. A mistake happens in the chain of communication so high up that, you know, his at least suspicions are confirmed via social media. It feels like a tale as old as time within esports, and it's just, you know, tiring to see, because you feel for the player, you feel for like the kid who just wakes up and just, you know, the team just decides that they're just going to get rid of him on Twitter, and it's like, all right, well, that's one way to start the day. Like, I don't know, I feel for him. It sucks.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's impossible that he got told nothing, but it's just like
right. No,
the more likely story. We have to really employ. I always forget Hanlon's razor or Occam's razor. One of the I'm pretty sure Hanlon's razor. Here where it's just like, yeah, it's just incompetence. It was just like, you know, they weren't trying to fuck over Myeongbong. They were just being, the team was just being stupid, and they just, I don't know. They were trying to get rid of him, but they didn't. They weren't trying to be malicious about it.
No. Did you see?
They were trying to find him a new home. They were trying to find him a new team to trade onto, and then this whole social media situation happened.
Yeah.
Did you see the last finale of this arc just now? So
they posted.
I think this. Yeah, I think you guys might have not even seen this. But
okay, go on.
So the NYXL won their match against the Houston Outlaws and posted a victory tweet, and the featured player on the victory tweet graphic was Myeongbong.
Now I have to assume that's a little that's kind of bad taste, right? I'm sorry.
Is that deleted now? Because I can't find it.
Yeah, it's gone. That's not bad taste. That's not done intentionally, Joe.
So they just fucked up again.
No, of course it's not done intentionally, but it's just like, I don't know how you can say bold-faced that you've changed your communication structure then immediately fuck up the same way. I'm sorry. That's just ridiculous.
I'm getting real.
That's different, though. That's different.
Is it?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, that's
what's different.
Like one is just like a social media manager grabbing one of the assets that they created previously, not even endemically being entrenched, knowing whatever is happening, or just an oversight in the heat of a moment, but maybe also excited and just posts a graphic. And unfortunately, Myeongbong was one of the 3-2 victory graphics or whatever. I don't think this is like. I'm quickly scraping together a Photoshop in order to. I mean, in some ways, I understand why the social media manager of the NYXL wouldn't have a victory graphic ready. Didn't have to have one for a while.
Get it? 100% understand.
I think that one was in the vault collecting dust for the last, 8 weeks or something.
It's almost like there was like a really loud, roster move that just happened that maybe you want to update some of those graphics, right? Maybe someone in that chain of communication goes, hey, maybe we need to fix this.
I don't know whose fault it is this time.
No, again, not gonna point fingers.
Yeah, I don't want to just like straight up throw back onto, it was whoever the low level social media manager person is.
That person.
It might, you know what? I'm just gonna put it back on whoever that middle guy is, the person in that middle that is approving these posts, that is saying yes, post this.
Yes, yeah.
And then the social media manager who's on the account says yes, boss, submit.
Yeah.
Whoever the person is that's approving these, that person's fucked up multiple times now.
Look,
because there was another one, wasn't there? Another one before the Myeongbong situation as well. There was another NYXL mistake that happened.
I don't remember offhand.
No, there was something else. NYXL did something else.
There's something else that is not known.
Okay. Well, in that case, I guess we're not talking about it.
We won't talk about that.
Yiska subtweets about things that went wrong.
No, I think that's I mean, if that comes out, but bottom line being, I think this is a different mistake. I think this is not a mistake of communication structure. So it's fair. The thing is, I mean, everyone listening to this podcast right now has Curb Your Enthusiasm music playing. This is
it's funny. I hate that it has to be at a player's expense, but this is fucking comical.
I thought they did it on purpose because I'm like, there's no way you could fuck that up. No, surely if you're doing this, you're doing it on purpose as like a joke.
This would be my Occam's razor. Accidentally again, like Yiska saying, play whatever, you know what I mean? Just low level social media isn't plugged in and just is tweeting from the folder that says we've won.
Yeah.
And it just happens.
You got to have enough self-awareness to even if you're tweeting from that, you're like,
I would imagine
this is got an image of Myeongbong in it. Maybe we shouldn't do that. But apparently no one stopped themselves. And again, they hit send and they're like, oh, whoops. Twice within 24 hours. I love that. God.
Mickey Mouse shit, man.
So yeah, they dropped Myeongbong. Pick up Anson J.
You know what's really sad about this is there was a time where the NYXL were the principal case of social media and general content done right. This used to be the gold standard in the Overwatch League. And then, like, probably also a budget thing. Like, things got moved around. Talent was hired elsewhere.
Sure.
Unfortunately, like, this seems like a much less engaged work now, right?
Yeah, very, very much so.
Seems also like an org that doesn't care that much about competitive success anymore.
Ooh,
there's a bit of irony
really?
there. There's a bit of irony there.
Yeah, that feels a little ironic.
Because I don't know what you're about to bring up, Joe, but I'll just say what I'm about to bring up. It's ironic because the NYSL, the subliners, the CDL franchise team, they're putting a shitload of effort into. In fact, that CDL team did super good this year. At the end, the start of the year wasn't so good. Yes. Towards the end, they had a Cinderella miracle comeback, and they were throwing a lot of effort into it. They're putting new players on. They paid a lot of money for Crim 6. You know, they did everything. They put up an event. They hosted one of the stage finals as well, which did super well. They were very invested in their subliners team. So again, it's another situation where, you know, the org is probably willing to invest, but there's just low confidence on Overwatch League because of the whole situation that we've already talked about. It's a downtrend. There's no sponsors. We don't want to sponsor the Overwatch League, whether it's a team or the league itself. I would talk about viewership, but honestly, like CDL viewership is pretty similar. So it's not. If the people that keep bringing up viewership, it's like I don't think that is the be all and end all that you think it is. I know it's like that's the lowest hanging fruit to criticize, but it really is not the be all end all. So I mean, yeah, the fact that the same teams that don't have faith in the Overwatch League and are like kind of quote unquote coasting with the Overwatch League team, but then are putting a shitload of effort into the CDL team. I mean, and both leagues have the same viewership. I mean, fucking do the maths, please. Please do. And
ironically, New York is still sandbagging in 2022. Weirdly enough. No, I wanted to poke Yiska on like the not to completely spoil the like upcoming piece about like budgets and whatnot. But would you be willing to kind of divulge like a hot or cold measurement, you know, when it comes to NYXL's budget per performance or underperformance? Would you say that they've overperformed their budget or underperformed?
They are underperforming their budget, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And to be fair, look, like sometimes I should probably just shut up, but because like there's of course like reporting constantly going on. But
sure, of course.
I feel like I don't blame the people there.
Interesting. Like,
explain
that.
Who are you not blaming? Who's the people that you are not blaming?
Like,
and what are you not blaming them for?
So, like the management in charge.
Of New York.
Of New York Excelsior.
Yeah. What are you not blaming them for?
I mean the thing is, okay. I think the team is kind of wonky. Is that fair to say? Like they spent heavily on Kellen. They spent heavily on Yaki, presumably. They got some pretty good other pieces here and there, right? Like Flora was something to build around, whatnot. It just feels like you're probably 2 players short from being a good team. And like sometimes, yeah, once again, like it's a developing situation where we will have to see how this goes. Once again, Lao, they have actually signed additional players, and what do you know? Having a main support player apparently makes you win, even if you're on 200 ping. I think this is an interesting developing situation. I think we don't also wait. Is this who are the coaches left on this team?
Undyne.
Right.
Undyne.
Yeah.
Undyne.
Maybe one more guy. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Gesture.
Long story short, I'm working on
Gesture. Yeah, Gesture as well. Gesture as well. Sorry, I forgot about Gesture. Here's the interesting thing about New York. They are a team that I don't know if I still consider them to be coasting, given that they have made changes now. But up until this point, like for the last 2 stages, I would have considered them as coasting. Actually, let me put it this way. Prior to the Ho1 sign, everything prior to the Ho1 signing, I would have considered New York to be coasting. Despite them having a budget of where they put money in, obviously on a couple different players. We obviously know that one of the things that didn't happen in the offseason was Yaki had other offers that he turned down. I think that's not a big surprise. Without even saying who, it's just like, yes, it's Yaki. He had other offers, of course. So New York had to pay to get Yaki. They obviously spent money on this roster in some ways. They are heavily it's easy to see that they are underperforming based on that, given that they are like at the literal bottom of the league with only 1 win. Now they have 2, but it took them a fucking long time to get that 2nd win. They are right next to a team that is Paris Eternal, same amount of wins, 1-11 up until today, and Paris are they're like a extreme lean and mean roster. Maybe just lean, maybe not even mean, but just lean. 6 players, all minimum right. And New York are on the same scoreline as them. Obviously, that means New York are heavily underperforming. Yeah. But the reason why I consider them to be coasting is because they had plentiful opportunity to build out their roster properly. It's not like they had zero money. They didn't have something. They had a lot more money than actual budget teams to play with to get players. They still only entered, as a reminder for those that forgot, into the season this year with 5 fucking players, and Kuki is their 6th man.
Yeah,
they filled out their 6-player obligation by putting their head coach into that player situation, and they just had Kuki's our player. That's what they did.
I'll be the one.
Fucking 5 players.
Yes,
they could have signed more. People say but it's hard to get Korean players in their NA team now. It's like, why didn't they get more players before they went to NA? Like everyone else did.
Yeah. That I think I'll be the one to kind of wildly speculate. Like, if we're going to say that, their budget, they paid some money. This screams like mid build. The budget was just cut in half. They wanted to do big things. They wanted to, actually aim to be competitive. And then in the midst of them building, it was just slashed. And then they immediately had to change course.
Or they paid a lot of money for 2 players. They're like, oh wait,
we lost all our money. Where did our money go?
I don't know. You're right though. It does look like a team that just midway through the roster building, their budget just got slashed or something. That's what it looks like.
Going into the preseason, I feel like that's that was the narrative that we had set forth. It was power ranking this team is really difficult because it feels like half a team. It feels like we got halfway through the first start. It was like, wow, this is a great start. We've got Kellen, we've got Yaki, we've got some role players. That's great. There are some obvious gaps, and maybe we want some depth. Never happened.
Never.
And yes, they're tweaking things now. They're trying to bleed the stone as much as it can be bled, but it's a frustrating team. It's a very hard team to make excuses for.
Well, at least now we can admit that changes have been made. They're doing stuff.
Have been made.
They ended up calling quits on Kuki. They got Anson Jayan, which has already proven to be pretty damn good for the team. As Yiska said, funny, but the guy might be on 200 ping, but getting a main support on 200 ping is already just improved the team.
Yeah.
So that was the other news of New York, as they signed on Sunjay. Ho1's available, but don't think he'll play yet in a double main support meta.
True.
I don't know. New York, I don't know if their season's salvageable just yet, but look, they've been desperate for a positive for some time, but get 1 positive now.
I mean, it's a big positive too. Not to go completely into it, which we will go into next week, but that's a pretty sizable
win
positive.
That you should
that's
never
a
expect.
big win.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Especially with how positive we were about Houston. This should be good for them. This should work. And I got to rewatch that game because that's a result. That is a result.
I mean, just looking at the other games they have. It's not easy, right? But now there's a path beforehand. So next game is Fuel. That will be hard. The one after is Titans, then Shock. Okay. Right now you're thinking, oh my God, this is a hard schedule. But then you finish with Paris next. And then Florida, right? But like if you beat Houston, you're capable of beating Florida. You're probably capable of beating the Titans. So this is like a... I mean, you probably can't be expected to win against the Fuel and the Shock, but it's still a 4-2 stage that qualifies you for the tournament. Suddenly, you're now once again have something to say. If you do that, you're in talks for play-ins.
Imagine if New York make the Toronto tournament, but not Toronto.
Now we're getting to comedy. Now we're really getting...
Toronto's making it. I have full faith Toronto's doing it. Making the run.
I mean, we need them to. I think we need them to.
Is that all the discussion on the New York drama? Is that about it? Yongbong kind of got...
So. I think
the whole miscommunication Twitter thing happened there. Yeah. I think most people aren't like... most people probably shouldn't be like super surprised that New York are making changes. I don't know if Myeongbong was necessarily the player that people expected to be changed, but as soon as you saw, here's something you have to know. When you see Ho1 being added, you know something's up. Third flex support, that's not normal. Then you see Anson J being added, you're like, there's 4 damn supports on this team. They still don't have a second tank. They still don't have a third DPS. If at that stage, if your alarm bells are not ringing, that some major changes are coming to the supports, then like I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
I mean, at that stage, you have to expect somebody's getting cut.
Depth, guys. That's not
somebody's getting cut, and so Myeongbong got cut to make space for them to have still have 2 flex supports, but then also an actual main support. And then Gangnam Jin, you know, he's still playing a bit of Lucio, a little bit of Gangnam Jin Lucio for now. But or is he? No, he's playing Brig. So he actually played Brig, and Anson J played Lucio. And then maybe when we get out of this Jungle Queen meta, and fuck me, I hope we do get out of this meta really quickly. Maybe Gangnam Jin will play again, or maybe they'll use Ho1. Maybe it'll be Ho1 Anson J on the back line. But look,
King brothers.
Not one of Myeongbong or Gangnam Jin was going to get cut.
Yeah,
I think that was always going to happen, given how things were.
As much as the dream of the fully support team was funny. I mean, memes me.
No Hill's out there like, what the fuck, New York? We were supposed to have a 5 support.
I thought we had a gentleman's agreement.
We had an agreement, guys. Come on. All right. And then finally, not quite drama, but it's news and we'll cover it. Roster moves. Houston. Yeah. Speaking of Houston, who just got reverse swept by the NYXL.
York.
They added 2 new players in Doge and Lep. Funnily enough, Doge immediately played. He played over both Piggy and Dante, except for the last map. Dante came in for the final map. But he played over both Piggy and Dante, which is an interesting decision by the Houston coaches, given that Doge is on ping.
Yeah.
This guy's from Denmark, yeah?
It is. I believe he's still playing from there. I can't, and you know, Yiska can confirm if that's true or not. Obviously spoke to him. But it was surprising in one way, and it wasn't necessarily super surprising in other. I feel like when you make moves like that, it kind of signals that like this is this is our player moving forward. Like this is the solution we found to like this really odd kind of rigid meta game. It just seems like such an odd decision, and I don't know because I haven't, again, we're recording this as the game was, played just an hour ago. I can't imagine that playing on ping helped him, right? I think that Junker Queen's a pretty like timing based hero for the most part, so like any kind of delay in that sense probably
it'll make your knife pretty hard to hit. It'll make your knife throw really tough. Other than that, she's probably okay. But like, I can maybe see it a little bit from the Houston coaches, being that coming from contenders, he would have already had a month plus worth of practice on Junker Queen. Right. So that's more than Dante and Piggy. But then you are playing with a guy on ping.
Yeah.
The other thing is, it's kind of weird, but right now, the Houston Outlaws either have 3 tanks or 3 DPSs.
Yeah.
And I'm not too sure which one it is. It could actually be both. They could have both at the same time because Dante's just flexing between 2 roles now. But still fairly certain that the idea is by signing an actual second tank, the idea is to start to move Dante back over towards an actual DPS, right?
Would assume as much. Yeah. I think this is I think like to speak to the move in general without like memeing on it. So with the New York reverse sweep and whatnot. I think it's a great play for the end of the season. We talked about, I think at least last episode or maybe even 2 episodes ago, the odds of like these Doom teams like really gambling for the end of the season. And like odds are you have, this meta, the Countdown Cup meta, and then going into playoffs and, play-ins, whatever that meta may look like. Or, I would guess we're getting a patch. I don't know if that's been confirmed or denied. So you have like 3 metas to kind of like cover. Patch for, going into playoffs or play-ins. Is there going to be a separate patch between Countdown Cup and play-ins? Because I know that there's like a discrepancy with what Stage 4 actually is, right? Is Stage 4 the play-ins?
Well, the Countdown Cup is basically the plans. I mean, Countdown Cup is like not even really. There's no tournament for Countdown Cup.
Right.
There's still 6 regular season games, but then
correct.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So it's. I'm interested to see how patches fall for that because, like, again, odds are for a lot of these Doom teams, like you're going to have to cover more bases than not, and you want to hedge your bets. A team like Houston has had a great season. They're within striking distance of, maybe taking a deep run if they have the proper tools. And I feel like this gives them, both Lep and Doge give them the proper tools to at least have a fighting chance. And they aren't just going to get like gambit out of a meta that they're like, oh, well, darn, we don't have a Wrecking Ball player. Oh, shucks, we don't have a Lucio. Gosh, golly gee, dang. At least they have their bases covered now and they can go into the playoffs, with as best tools
because otherwise Houston's in a weird place because they've effectively split the tank role across 3 different players. You have Doge playing Junker Queen, you have Dante playing Doom, and then Piggy playing some other stuff. It's like, on some teams, 1 person is doing all of this. On your team, 3 people are doing this. What's going on? So,
it's a weird one, but. I'm ready to give him a little bit more rope. I hope the community isn't torching him too hard after their first game.
Spring Yiska in here. You talked to Doge and you have a little bit of info about what's going on in Houston.
Yeah. So I mean this is a kid that really wants to play some Overwatch at the highest level. So
I bet most of them do.
Yeah.
That's probably the point of being in the league.
Yeah, no, for sure. Even though I will say, I guess, like sometimes people get offered an Overwatch League contract, like, yeah, I'm good. Like, that's definitely someone who wanted to really play. I think it's an interesting signing simply because, like, Doge had not been in scrims a lot or been, with the contenders team. I think that like even the latest Saudi E-League participation was a couple of months ago. From what I could find out is that Doge was already scouted last year or like part of the trials for Houston. And like they seem to have reached back into their scouting reports in order to find their, where they could find additions. I think this is a completely like salient approach, considering like you're not going to get like traits or whatever, like going. Yeah. It's unfortunate. Like this is, I think, the ping is prohibitive, and I hate that when players are put into these positions where like if London Spitfire never gives Hardy another chance. There's a world where he doesn't get picked up by another team when we don't have the Hardy that we have this year, where we're pretty all like on the same page that this is one of the best runnouts who ever played in the Overwatch League. So, like, I hope that he can still turn up, but at the same time, like, you have to say, like, tank is a pretty ping-dependent role, right? So as much as I'm almost flabbergasted that they were so quick to make that move.
Yeah.
Like they haven't picked
What
up
move? What move? Sorry.
like pick up the guy, sign him to a contract, and then play him on ping like so
Straight
quickly.
away.
Right?
Yep.
Especially on a meta where you have a completely new hero. Like you could have just said like, okay, like Doge, you're going to start practicing in this. For week 1, we had Piggy in scrims or whatever for the last 2 weeks.
Well, how do you feel about what I just said though? Like technically speaking, Doge should have more practice than either Dante or Piggy on Junker Queen.
Right.
I guess that's true, yeah. Yeah, it's a weird one. Oh, you wanna
He's more prepared to play this hero in this meta
And anybody
than
else,
any of the other tank players.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that more teams haven't done it. Yeah. To be honest. You should be like the archetype, I think.
I'm thinking if that's true or not. Because you think
What's
because
true?
he competed in contenders, right? And therefore
Well, contenders have had a full month on this patch.
yeah, I'm not
full month or more.
okay.
So
This
it's
is
like
I should know this, but I don't know that he did compete in contenders. I think he wasn't even on a team for that time.
01? Did 01 not? 01 played, didn't he? No, he didn't.
He
he
was
not play?
not part of. No, I think that was Quran drop, right?
Well, I stand corrected. Houston, that is weird. Then I don't know.
Yeah.
Because usually,
Yeah.
you get a contenders tank in, and it's like, oh yeah, he's a Junker Queen guy because he's already played this hero.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Did 01 not? Did he? Was he not on 01, or did 01 not play in contenders A sides? I'm confused now.
I'll take a look.
I think they did play. I think he left the team for like a while ago, and that's why he wasn't in scrims.
Oh, they had Crandop and MO97.
Yeah.
Okay, well that explains a lot. There's no Dog on this team.
Yeah. So
Okay then.
this is a little bit weird. But once again, like I think it's a good. I like the. Well, if that is indeed the thinking here, you need a lot of luck with your current lineup to have any chance to be good in season playoffs. You probably are damn near clinched it now. And like if you get unlucky with a meta, you're now in a position where you're screwed. So you want to diversify your options, right? And having a main tag player, having a main support player, that helps you, right, in making it wide. But yeah, I'm not sure what the assumption here is. Also, like at the same time, like I can have the equal reading, and I don't want to put anything negative in the ether because this is not based on anything. Like, okay, devoid of the Houston Outlaws, right?
Sure.
A random team picks up 2 Western players who are playing on ping in order to not have to play their other starters that are admittedly a little bit off-roll. You will quickly find other reasons as to why they're doing that other than trying to diversify their portfolio. I think there are other reasons why a team might do that, right? Now, I'm not saying that this is the case for the Outlaws. I'm just saying that this is a potential. You guys following, right? Like, if you have internal struggles, then you need to find replacements. I'm not saying this is happening, right? But yeah, I think it's certainly an interesting move that we will have to follow. And once again, like, it's not great that it hasn't worked against New York, but I'm interested how this develops and if this pays out, because once again, this was so short notice.
Well,
keep in mind, they don't have much time to figure this out because the trade deadline is coming up. Yes, they could have signed these players because they're contenders players, but like, once again, like you got to source all your options, and you know.
Unfortunately, they have no choice but to play it out and kind of figure it out as they go, because this is always bound to happen unless you're signing some god tier contenders players like a proper Heesang level player.
Mhm.
You know, this is Houston are kind of playing for the long game here, where they have to kind of figure it out as they go along. And it's like, well, we need to try and integrate 2 new players in the team on short notice, on a brand new patch, minimal scrim time. By the way, you can't understate the fact that there's like a language barrier as well. Sure, they've had Dante on the team the whole time, but like it's a majority Korean roster plus Dante. And when Dante doesn't play, it's a full Korean roster, isn't it? So now you've got 2 players that, I don't know, have Lep and Dog played on mixed rosters with majority Korean players before? Like that's probably a new experience.
Sure.
And at least one of them is on ping. Pretty sure Lep is not on ping, but in either case, you know, it's a lot. Part of me is not surprised that they lost to New York because of this reason. Part of me is also like, shit, if they're gonna this it does mean it's gonna be a rough stage for them. It does mean that, you know, you might not see Houston kind of reach its potential with this new squad until either partway through stage 3 or maybe into stage 4.
Yeah, which, I mean, they do have some buffer room with, you know, how successful they were in the first half of the season. But yeah, it's not something you want to bank on, is, you know, signing players and then immediately, you know, falling into a rut, right? Like not a great look, but you know, I guess I
wouldn't say it's a rut just yet. It's one game. We'll see what happens following from here. But losing to New York is definitely a bit of a blow. That's an eye opener right there. It's like, huh?
Yeah.
So
nothing like that one to start the stage, right? And boy, does it not get any less weird. But we'll get to it.
Just to round out the rest of the news here really quickly. Swingchip is back on Mayhem. Nice.
What's that?
Good job, Swingchip. She was on Gen G for a little bit, and she was Orgless for a little bit. Now she's back on Mayhem, so well done. Appreciate that. Lige has been cut from Hangzhou Spark. So, man literally gets to play one map for the Hangzhou Spark. Finally debuts this year. I had the pleasure of casting that as well. I'm thankful that I've seen him. And then they cut him. To be fair, I don't think it's worthwhile keeping 3 tanks around. It wasn't worthwhile even last year. Well, you could at least make a minor argument last year, be like, yeah, well, you know, at least there's still 2 tanks to be playing, you have a backup. In a 1-tank game, there's no reason to have 3 tanks. So, in most teams with 2 tanks, trying to cut down from 2 to 1, right? So, yeah, somebody had to go. I guess Liga was the lowest priority member, being that Bernard is their starter, who shares their main tank, who covers the main tank heroes better than Bernard does. And then there's Liga, who's played 1 map. So, probably one of the most unfortunate players signed to an Overwatch League team where there was a reasonable amount of hype behind him. Not an insane amount, but some level of hype behind him, being that he came from CC. And just never got to see any of that, sadly. And only if they cut him way sooner, because then Jungdu might have had a chance to grab him instead of Daisy. I don't know.
Yeah. Joe, isn't that, you know, a personality from your rich history of Chinese Overwatch?
I mean, yeah, Liga was always, you know, I think he was coming up as I was slowly moving out. Definitely was somebody that was on my radar. You know, hearing through the CEO grapevine, shout outs Kenobi, that, you know, this was the truth, the kid that's coming up and performing well. And funnily enough, another player that kind of you and I quickly discussed and had my opinion changed immediately. I was like, you know, I can see from the Sparks perspective of like, yeah, this is a really good player and people are going to want him, so people are going to pay. And then they never did. So how good of a business move really was it at the end of the day? Did you really just out here killing careers for a buck? I don't know. Like,
hey, at least they terminated him before the deadline.
Sure, they could have done him dirty. That's very true. I also have to assume that like there was always an attempt, or you know, a plan. I mean, probably.
Because here's the thing: is if they attempted to trade him, and now that they've terminated him, it means they failed to trade him, which means no one wanted to buy.
I mean, there's also not too many teams that like are that are destinations, right?
Probably not. You've got Guangzhou, where Krong already covers his position. Yeah. Chengdu already have a player; they wouldn't be able to buy him anyway unless they could get him for minimum.
Yeah.
Shanghai is a full Korean team, and then there's
Philly.
No Philly. Valiant probably wouldn't mind him, but they already have Sashin.
Yeah.
And they also probably can't afford the buy, and they probably want him for cheap as well. And that's about it, because there's no Philly, there's no Seoul. Yeah, so there's actually, you're right, there's no destinations. Really, the destination is Chengdu, if they can get him for real cheap, but Chengdu just don't have money.
Yep. Yeah. Would you put yourself in the GM's position there for a hot second? Do you drop Daisy for Liga like today, like gun to head?
I don't know what this dude even plays like in 20.
Right? Yeah. No, I get it.
Even if you do, it's just like what. I guess it's like, hey, Liga, do you want to play for minimum?
Yeah.
And I guess he'd be like, well, I'm not, it's that or I don't play, so I guess yes.
Yep.
Part of me is like, I don't really have a good understanding of how good Liga is anymore, because he just hasn't played in anything except for one map, and you can't really gain anything from that. But on the other hand, it's like, fuck, can't be worse than Daisy, right?
Sure. I have to assume.
But also part of me is like, is he going to be a better Junker Queen than either Daisy or Gaga? Because if he's not, there's no reason to sign him now.
Yeah.
If you're going to get him, maybe wait till Countdown Cup and see what the meta's like. It's like getting him now only to be benched by Gaga. Let's say you replace Daisy with him. If Gaga is still your best player and Liga isn't playing, then it's kind of no point, right? Unless you're worried that another team's going to scoop him up, but I don't think that's happening. Unless No-Hill just like comes in and just bags him up, just kidnaps him away.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Feel bad for him, but what you can do.
No-Hill plays Overwatch roster building the way I like to play TFT. I just want to buy a whole bunch of different shit, just fill up my board, right? And like just trying to figure out what I want to put in, and then every now and then I'm like, fuck, I guess I have to remove this thing from the board to make space, you know? Sell it from the board and put another new thing.
Oh, there's a new piece on the market. Let me gotta reevaluate.
I could be going for a 3-star on this thing, but I'm like, I might just change my tactics here.
Wholesale
all right. Final thing on the docket was no beta 3 officially.
Sag.
Yeah.
I already knew this like a full month in advance, but this is the final thing on the docket. I was, prior to my finding out there wasn't a third beta, I was fairly convinced there was going to be a third beta because there was time left. There was enough allocated time to run a third beta, and also there's another new hero and another new map coming, which, based on how the betas have been run so far, the idea is to test both those things on a beta, right? But we're not going to get any of that, so that's quite interesting. Now, I gather that the plans changed. My assumption was that they were going to do a third beta, but at some point during this year, they had to scrap that because they didn't want to put resources towards managing a beta, and they just want to try and
get the game out,
get this fucking game released.
Yeah.
So they ended up cutting something to make sure that they had enough working space and resources dedicated to releasing the game instead, which is understandable.
Yeah, I get it. I'm fair.
It's not sad.
I think in like a weird way, there's almost like a nice, like, and this is kind of my only opinion. It sucks. Like, I wish we had a third beta, but I also don't want like a delay. I also like want the game to be as polished as it can be on release, because like that's going to help us a lot. And I think like there's something to be said about like having a brand new toy to look forward to on October 4th, like something that we haven't seen, what we haven't beta tested, that like everybody's going to get to try it for the very first time immediately when the game comes out. That was kind of the concern that I had with the third beta, is that we're going to roll into, you know, October 4th with nothing new. It's just going to be the same game, just everybody gets to play it and it's not going away again. But now we actually have like a carrot to like chase. And while there is a lull in like time played, I think we've convinced enough people with the two betas that like Overwatch 2 is a game that like you want to play, is a better experience rather.
not only that, but like to the people that you didn't convince of the first 2 betas, I don't think a third one would convince them anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't convince them. Yep.
I also think the entire beta rollout has just, again, it's not been the best from Blizzard. So like to me, I'm almost like, yeah, fuck it, don't do a third beta. It's like, you know, what the people that want to play that have been convinced by the betas, they're gonna play anyway.
Yep.
Fuck it, even the people that don't want to play, they're lying to themselves. They'll play anyway. It's free to play. They will give it a go.
It's gonna be the thing to do.
I almost think like not having a third beta might be right, because then people,
I think so, yeah.
There's like you get to avoid all the BS that comes with it, where like people like, oh, you know, the queue times and the, oh, what's the population of the beta? People will judge the third beta in a way that's not fair or indicative of the final product.
Right.
And I've had a very long rants in the past on this podcast about how consumers approach the idea of betas and how their understanding of betas are, which is very fucking poor.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, oh, you know, it's such an insufferable rant, and you're not correct. It's like, am I? Am I not wrong? Am I incorrect about this? Because again, you look at all the fucking comments, it's all people like talking about how all their problems, like, oh, Overwatch 2 this, Overwatch 2 that. Like, I'm not paying money for this. Again, all the most like uneducated comments ever was like, I'm not going to pay money for this. Like, motherfucker, it's free. Also, this is not the final product. Like, you just can't. I don't know. People don't understand that, and you know, I think people underestimate how bad the average consumer is. So, yeah, fuck it. Don't do a third beta. Just knock the game out on October 4th. Just best game possible. Don't worry about a beta. I'm sure it'll be fine. Only concern is like maybe because we don't get to test things out, things could be broken.
Yeah.
I would still like a situation where they quote unquote release the third hero for the Overwatch League for like Countdown Cup or something, so that at least Overwatch League can play it and show it off. But more importantly, if at minimum the league players get to play and the teams get to discriminate and play it, they get to test it. And when you test it, we can find the problems with the hero. Because otherwise, if we don't have that, then shit could be wild on release.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's a bummer, but like I think whatever novelty we can have for the eventual launch, the better. I think because you don't just want like the F2P crowd. Am I wrong to assume that Overwatch 2 launch is F2P launch?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
100%.
I mean, you want to bring in new and old players, right? I mean, how do you do that? F2P launch is one way, but also the new hero is another. So, for the, you know, old heads.
I mean, it'll be new for the public.
Right.
For the vast majority of players who didn't even get to play the beta, whether because they didn't know about it or they weren't interested enough or they just couldn't get in, a lot of people still haven't played Junker Queen or Sojin, so it's still new for like the vast majority of people.
True.
Because you have to be pretty hardcore to want to play a beta, whereas most people probably just, if you're a super casual player, you probably don't even know this. You might not even know the game is coming out. You might not even know it's free to play.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised again at how, you know, little most people care about this kind of thing.
Fair point. Fair point.
Yeah, at first I was disappointed it wasn't a third beta. Now I'm like, whatever. It's probably for the best.
Yeah, I agreed. I think I'd kind of echo the same points there. Probably for the best. End of the day.
It does suck a little for the consumer, but at the same time, given that the whole situation around this game and the internet is all optics focused, like if you can't generate positive optics off of having a third beta, then just don't even do it. Like, it'll only bring negativity. You know, it'll just stir the pot with Battle.net again. They'll be fucking frustrated at God knows what. Everything frustrates them. And they frustrate me. And a lot of things frustrate me as well.
Yeah.
Just a negative circle of frustration. All right. Any further news? Did we cover everything? Is all the drama done? Are we out fresh out of drama? Have we dosed up? Are we fully TMZ'd out or what?
Yeah,
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I mean,
think we purged it. I feel better. I feel lighter.
I'm ready to submit myself to a day of 0 correct preds.
I'll tell you what though, that's not going to be me because I got at least one right. But also, beyond that, now that we're out of drama, Yiska's going to create some more drama because we are still teasing the imminent release of a new Yiska article of budget tiers and whatever, and plentiful drama will be generated from that. Believe you me.
Yes, and plenty of celebrations, hopefully, of people that do a lot with very little.
Do you want to tease when we might be seeing that article? Or you're not ready to talk about it yet?
I'm going full steam ahead for tomorrow. I'm pretty confident that I can do it. I think
so. So today, for everyone listening to then,
correct.
So by the time this episode comes out, they already have it. Is what you're saying?
Yes.
And then by that time, we won't have talked about the new drama. You'll have generated new drama of which we haven't talked about it yet.
Correct. Now,
right, well,
I will say, just to give you a little bit of an idea, and I'm not sure how much I will put into the eventual article, but I was surprised how much interest there was from North American organizations in participating in this, to the point where I feel pretty confident about the submissions. Some were very gracious with their information, to the point where I think I can now communicate a safe, because like here's one thing. I could tell you some of the people's contract orders and whatnot. I think it's not fair to single out individuals, because that's not, like if this was a collective bargaining position in a union position and whatnot, like then we would have all the salaries. To single out one person is not great. Now I can give you benchmark numbers. How much budget does each team have? What can a player expect to do? What is what kind of evaluations go in there? I have to make some caveats, right? Like, this is still people self-reporting or like reporting on others. This is still like rough guesstimations. There's still some that, considering I was privy to some information of team finances, some of the general managers get it very wrong about other teams, right? Like, and it's hard to evaluate, right? So, still in aggregate, I think I'm pretty happy with what we landed at. I think there are mild inaccuracies there. Once again, keep in mind, this is not an exact science. It's also not taking into account the facility that you have that you're paying for, the food stipends, the housing, the tax rates, the whatever a player might consider in their estimation of which team
the tax breaks you get from being on Florida.
I mean, it's very different, like depending on which state you're in, right? This would have been a huge issue, by the way. Like if Paris ever was actually an organization playing in Paris, famously, like French orgs or French football teams have to pay you double what other teams pay you, just because their top tax rate is so ridiculous. So PSG had to pay like Zlatan Ibrahimovic double of what the market price was, just because their top tax rate is like 60% or something ridiculous, right? So
like me, mine may never be part of a French org.
Yeah, I mean, it's scales, right? It's like you're not making millions yet, so your tax rate would probably be high. Like even like researching some of the tax rates here, man, I'm crying. I'm like well above 30%. Yeah, right. So, oh well, but I don't also have.
So what you're saying is, yes, you get paid more for being on the LA Gladiators, but you're also paying the California government more. And with that, we'll see you all next week for the recap episode, and also next week's preview. We're also going to be previewing the APAC games, which yours truly will be finally back on. 257 is coming up next week. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. We covered as much as we could. We'll see you next time.
Peace.